Om Sarvopanishad Gavo Dogda Gopala Nandana Parthavatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gitamritam Maha. All the Upanishads are likened to a cow. The cowherd boy is Krishna. The calf is Arjuna. People of purified intellect are the drinkers of the milk, and the milk is the supreme nectar called the Bhagavad-Gita. Chapter 6, verse 33. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, that's Krishna, this yoga that has been spoken of by you as equanimity, I do not see the steady continuance of this owing to the restlessness of the mind. So in the preceding few verses, the Lord had spoken about to see that one Atman in all beings and all beings in that Atman. That is that yoga of sameness. In the Atman, there is no distinction of sex, caste, creed, religion, nothing. All the differences are external to it. The more deeper we go and see each and everything and every person as having that core, the Atman, and once we perceive that in everything, that is the yoga of sameness, samye. So Arjuna, after keeping quiet for a very long time, he is not interrupted him since the beginning of this chapter. And not only that, even in the 5th chapter, he was more or less quiet. In the 4th chapter, he says he raised a doubt also there. But his doubts are, in a way, helpful for us for clarifications. So after he spoke about this great yoga of, you can say, experience, that when you see the Atman in all beings and all beings in the Atman. So Arjuna says, okay, this yoga that has been spoken of by you as equanimity, that sameness, I do not see the steady continuance in this. I do not see myself becoming established in this idea or the experience of sameness. Why? Because owing to the restlessness of the mind, obviously. So we say, okay, let's go. We'll take all the trouble, we'll climb the Himalayas, we'll climb Mount Everest, and all the trouble we come and take, and then we reach the peak. You think you're going to stay out there? No, just impossible. Why? You'll be blown off. You might die. So after all the trouble, you execute this yoga in your life, and when you come to this peak experience, you cannot keep it steady. That experience is not steady because the mind is restless. It will take you down. One moment it is here, next moment it has gone somewhere else. It's not only beyond this temple in Hollywood, but it is somewhere else also is gone off. Arjuna vacha yoyam yogastvaya prokta samye namadusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatvat stitim sthiram. So there was one Swami. Whenever, a senior Swami, whenever we used to fumble about with things, bumble about, or break things, or drop things, or when we were, too gregarious, he used to stop us in the tracks by Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. The mind is restless, O Krishna. That was what he used to do. And, it used to stop us and, the mind is restless. He used to caution us and kind of put a brakes into all our whatever we were doing. So here the doubt is raised. It's not a doubt, it's a statement Arjuna is making to Krishna. Yes, what you've spoken is excellent. There's no doubt about it. But you see, my mind is restless. The mind is restless by its nature. So we'll take the 34th also, because these two verses are taken together. Then we will explain. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayuriva sudushkaram. O Krishna, it is well known that the mind is very unsteady, restless, turbulent, resistant, and tough. Dridam, firm, is just not amenable to any kind of control. I consider its restraint to be as greatly difficult as that of controlling the wind. Now we have come to something. Can you control the wind? The wind is blowing about, saying stop. Yogis can do that, but that's not the wind that runs in our bodies, called the prana. You just cannot stop. Stop. No, you cannot do. You'll collapse like that. Only in samadhi you stop. The wind inside. So he's giving an example, illustration of, I simply cannot stop the mind. I cannot control the mind. It's like controlling the wind. And then he uses all these great adjectives, the restlessness of the mind. It's unsteady, it is turbulent, it is resistant, and it is tough. So he's saying, pramati balavad dridam. So here it is. The mind is restless. So this is the mind. Okay. Now we ask somebody, where is the mind? Yeah, there's somewhere inside. That everybody is aware of. Yeah, somewhere. It is restless, yeah, but mind runs away here and there. That also is kind of understood. But you start asking people, what exactly is the mind? Oh, what is the material of the mind? Mind is an entity, so it has to be made up of something. Yeah, it is a subtle matter of nature. It's called tanmatras. So like we have a gross body, the mental body is called a sheath in Vedanta, has subtle particles, a subtle matter. So that's the reason why it's saying you starve yourself, your mind will become kind of weak. You start eating, and then your mind will become a little stronger. So there is a connection between the body and the mind. This is understood. Okay. Because we talk about controlling the mind, controlling restlessness, controlling. We've been doing a series of meditation and this and that, how to meditate and meditation for beginners and skills and this and that. Then I suddenly realized we've been teaching all these things, but we have not even spoken about what is the mind. How do you know what you're going to do if you don't know the mind? So it is made up of very subtle material. The subtle materials have become gross, and this gross universe is what we intuit, we perceive. So it is a subtle material: air, fire, water, earth, and space. The 5 great elements combined, muted, and you can see dominant, and they are permuted and combined. All these things is the mind, the material of the mind. So there are then 3 qualities of the mind. It's called a sattva and rajas and tamas. So this material, the subtle material, is made up of these 3 gunas, 3 qualities. Then, so we've understood now. But then, is the mind only like that? No, the mind runs about here, reflects things, talks. So it has impressions in the mind. And where are the impressions? The impressions cannot be seen, but they are sufficiently powerful to work underneath the conscious mind. So the mind has layers of conscious and subconsciousness. So this much is kind of okay to be understood. Now they're saying, we have all these things called the mind, we have the intelligence, we have the sense of identity, and we have the sense of deliberation. Intelligence, deliberation, and then we have the personal identity, and we have something called the sense of I. Mano, buddhi, chitta, ahankar. The mind is by its nature deliberative. It's always restless. And then you have the memories, chitta. And then you have the intelligence, obviously. And then you have the personal sense of identity, aham. So all these are the mind. And the mind, yes, we have the mind, but then there must be something to run this. All these things that you have done and you remember to have done, and those things which you don't even remember, is the software that runs this whole entity. And there are millions and millions and millions teeming inside. The sludge, it's kind of, it's moving about here, it's very fluid. We can see that in dreams. When you dream, you see some crazy things. That means those impressions in the mind are very fluid. They don't even bother about what you are going to say or do. They will do whatever they want to. So this is, and then even lower down, those impressions become like the sludge. As you said, they are called the vasanas. These are the ones that are the seeds of future births. Again, impressions are in 2 categories: knowledge impressions and impressions that will fructify. That is, it will give rise to the fruits of your karma, whatever you have done. Like, I see this book, I read this book, that is okay. That's fine, perfect. Suppose I say, this book is mine, I'm not going to give it to anybody. I have created what is called a karmashaya. That is the receptacle of karma. As long as, okay, this book is nice, and you read it and everything is, you derive some knowledge here. These are all knowledge impressions. But the moment you have this aversion and attraction or the sense of I for this particular thing, it becomes a cause of bondage. So these are the jnana ashaya, that is knowledge impressions, and karma impressions that will fructify as species, birth, and age. Jati, ayur, bhoga. Yeah, it depends where you're going to, it's going to fructify. But yeah, let's put it like this. So the mind is an entity. So when you sit down, we say the mind is restless. Okay, we can understand this. But that's only speaking just a little of what the mind is. Why? Because sleep is a form of the mind. Cognition, all these things. So, according to the Yoga Sutras, all these various impressions in the mind, as well as the structures, as well as the functions of the mind, fall into 10 categories. The first 5 categories are the painful ones, and the other 5 categories are the not painful ones. It's called the klishta vrittis and the aklishta vrittis. Okay? Yeah, we'll take this up, because until unless you don't know what you're trying to go to control, what are you going to try to control? The mind. What is the mind? Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Where does it remain? Where does it stay? Somewhere inside. Yeah. So we need to understand the mind through its functions and through its structures. And only then can we kind of undertake a kind of a discipline to control them. So this is a klishta vrittis and aklishta vrittis. Klishta is the painful one. So the Yoga Sutras say, you first control the painful ones. Then you go for the not painful ones. So these painful impressions, they are into 5 classes. Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Ignorance, a sense of I. That which is, you can say, that binds you to things. Attachment, aversion, and the fear of death. Kind of instinctive. You know? Nobody loves death, you know? Except in very rare cases, you have yogis and all who don't bother about death. You know? So it is ignorance, the sense of personal I, asmita. You have attachment, you have aversion, and you have the fear of death. These are the 5 things that need to be controlled first. Then what are the not painful classes of vrittis? So they are called, he's saying, pratyaksha, that which is the cognition. Viparyaya, vikalpa, nidra, smriti. So we'll go to answer. Sleep and even memories. You control the memories? Yeah, you have to control memories. Can you control sleep? You have to control sleep. And then false memories, verbal delusions, taking things for granted, seeing things wrongly, and all the cognitions that we have through the senses, all these things have to be controlled. It's a big task. Yeah, it's a very big task. No wonder Arjuna was saying, hey, it is something like, what is this rubbish? It's just impossible to kind of control the mind. So the painful vrittis are saying, the Patanjali says that the first ignorance is the breeding ground, the cause of the other four functions of the mind. The sense of I, attachment, aversion, and the fear of death. Oh my God. So you're going to go and control it. To control the mind, again, we are living on the conscious mind. Most of us are. There are some who are living in the subconscious mind, in the dream mind, in the imaginary mind, the imaginary world the people live. So here they are saying that you have to take it one by one. First you hit ignorance. And what is ignorance? It is all false cognitions, taking one thing for the other. Taking the pure for the impure, for the what is painful as pleasurable, what is pleasurable as painful. Yeah. What is all this? Yes, it is an exactly opposite cognition of things. We don't see things in the correct light. We are seeing things wrongly. And this is the first thing that needs to be caught. So this is ignorance. Then the second one is asmita. The feeling of I, it has to be identified with your consciousness, the sense of I. But what it identifies itself with? With this and this and this and then this, and this is me. If I take out this, something like a part of me has been taken away. So it is false identification again. It should have been identifying itself with that consciousness, with the Purusha, the reality. But it is identifying itself with the perishable things, all the wrong things. And attachment, that dwells on pleasure, pain, that is, of course, it recoils. This attraction and aversion, these are the two kind of very powerful forces in us. We are, constantly buffeted by these two forces of attraction and aversion. So we are pulled and pushed by these things. And then we have something called fear of death. That is there. What will happen? And all the religions and all the philosophies are trying to explain this. Why? This is fear of death. Svarasapi, vidushopi, saying Pratishta, that is established even in the wise, is the fear of death. What you talk about ignorant people? Ignorant people are there, they don't know anything. Even in the wise, that way. You may say, oh, no. So that fear is there in everything and everybody. And it's a very powerful, you can say, movement of the mind. So even this has to be controlled. Why? Yeah. Now, these are the painful class of vrittis, or class of, you can say, functions of the mind. And the not painful is all cognitive, you can say, functions. Whatever happens to the senses, everything has to be controlled. Not only the cognition, when we cognize, when we perceive certain things, our mind functions on, okay, we assume certain things. It's called anumana. That is, okay, this hill has smoke, that means there is fire. Okay. You know, this is understood. And then we read so many things. These are cognitions. When you're reading, you're trying to understand things. These are also cognitions. So these are cognitive classes of vrittis, or classes of, you can say, functions of the mind. Pramana, viparyaya, vikalpa, nidra, smriti. Pramana is this. Pratyaksha, that which I cognize. Anumana, which I assume. And also what I read about, what people have said about it. And most of our knowledge is also through that. Oh, I've heard that Swami was saying like this. There it is. So here we have these first class, these not painful. Once you've controlled these, you have to control the other ones. Yeah. So we have pramana, vikalpa. Vikalpa is, what happens? We jump to very immediate conclusions about people, places, and things. We hear something and we immediately jump into conclusion. Stop. Wait. Think about it now. So this tendency of the mind to simply jump to to justify itself, to judge the others, that has to be controlled. Yeah, so and then we have something viparyaya, something called, most of our memories are all false memories. Take for example, see, the child is told, you see, your uncle Moon is there. And then child grows up thinking, that's my uncle. Why? Because my mother said it's my uncle. And after the child grows up, he's saying, it cannot be my uncle. So till that child, it's like, the child has been told, yeah, there's a Santa Claus. Yeah. And he bought all those gifts. And then after the child grows up, there is no such thing as Santa Claus. But it has become part of the culture and nature and everywhere. These are all false memories. Hundreds and hundreds of things are there in culture and society that's all half false, and somehow they're completely false. But you're taking it for real. Then we have memories, smriti. All the memories that you have to control, all the memories. And then sleep. You are sitting around nicely, everything is nicely, you're going on well, fine, and then you fall asleep. It's such a wonderful feeling. Control that, the yogi will say. Oh my God, even this? Yeah. So what do we do? Yes, this is the only way that we can come down to the perception of the Atman, and we can control the mind completely. So it has to be done one by one by one by one. But it will take a lifetime. Yeah, but once you do it, then that's enough for, you've cut down many lifetimes, maybe 1,000 lifetimes. It's all over for you. So how do we control this? The Yoga Sutras, even in the Bhagavad-Gita, the Lord will say, through practice and detachment. That's all. Yes. Through practice. Nothing but practice. Practice, 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 practice. And get detached. So, practice is, to get to the mind, you'll have to get it through the body. Otherwise, it's going to be impossible. So what you know, this I know, now you control this first. through the various asanas. And then what do you know? I know my breath. Control that breath. That is pranayama. So asana, pranayama. And then if this is controlled, then you're getting inside. You're getting through those various meridians of the nerves, getting inside. And when the mind wants to deflect itself from your control, pull it back in. So where's the mind? It is inside you, and it has to go, you have to go towards it through the body and through the breath. And that's why so many practices devote themselves, yoga practices, to Hatha Yoga and Pranayama. But these are only the external means. Once you come inside, because once you get inside, you take up this. So this mind, this is the structure, this is the functions of the mind, and it is there for everyone. Human beings more, in other mammals it's less, it's the same thing. Everybody has memory, instincts, we call it, we are instinctive, that also. But there is another aspect of the mind. So long we've been talking about the mind and its functions, the breath and its functions. But there is another aspect of the mind which is like a closed door to us right now. It has to be opened, and that is the superconscious aspect of the mind. It is only after controlling these things that the mind will kind of gush upwards towards these superconscious levels. And it is this that enables us into becoming yogis or yoginis, or samadhi or whatever. The perception of God or reality or truth happens in that level of the mind. So this is what is controlling the restlessness of the mind. So he's saying, oh Krishna, it is well known that the mind is very unsteady, it is turbulent, it is resistance, and it is tough. Chanchalam, pramati, balavat, and dridham. I consider its restraint to be as greatly difficult as of controlling the wind. Can you control the wind? No. Yeah, you can. Hey, even controlling the wind is much easier than controlling the mind. Oh, really? Say, yeah. But this is the way. This is the only way to yoga. People have taken a nibble here and a bite there and becoming satisfied with it. Swami Vivekananda says, I have practiced it sometimes 23 hours out of the 24. Sometimes I've practiced it the whole day and night, 24 hours. And he says, and I have just touched the hem of this great science. He, of course, he is humble about it. He was a master yogi. All the incarnations also had to practice it. All the saints had to practice. You know, there is saying, we all want the fruits of dharma, or karma, but we don't want to practice it. We want to avoid the bad effects of dharma or karma, but we cannot stop ourselves from doing that very thing. So this is the dharma, and it has to be taken up step by step by step. It's a gradient, and one has to take it up. You hold on one thing, it will lead you to the next, and slowly and slowly. But then it's so impossible. That's what he's saying. The Lord says, 35th, Sri Bhagavan Vacha. The Lord says, Asamshayam mahabhavo mano durnigraham chalam abhyase na tu kaunteya vairagye na cha grihyate. O mighty armed one, he is telling Arjuna, it is doubtless that the mind cannot be controlled and is restless. So the Lord agrees. But, O son of Kunti, that is Arjuna, it is restrained through practice and detachment. So practice and detachment. Practice. So all these functions, whatever we had said, can it be done? Yes. Okay. Sri Ramakrishna once, he scolded Adbhutananda. You are coming here to sleep? He found him sleeping in the evening. You come here to sleep? I don't know what Sri Ramakrishna will tell us when he comes here. What are you doing sleeping here? So Adbhutananda said, I'm not going to sleep anymore at night. And he did it. He used to sit down, and whenever he used to feel asleep, he used to, splash water on his face, rouse himself, pace up and down, slowly, slowly, slowly. It was a terrible fight, but he controlled it, controlled the sleep. Arjuna, he is also somebody who had controlled sleep. Yeah, Gudakesha. So yes, he was the one who controlled his sleep. But sleep is natural. Yeah, he has controlled those natural functions of the body and the mind. So it is not that it is impossible. Memories. You counter one with the other and slowly. So what the Lord is also saying is practice. It has to be done through practice. And detachment. Practice. Why is detachment? Detachment is to come away from those things which have begun sprouting and which you need to destroy. The seeds called vasanas. So you have to come away from that. Vasanas. So detachment and practice. Practice, get the body and get the breath and get the mind into a kind of a rhythm. The body is a result of habits. Whatever you have done is a result of habits. So counter habits can be performed, and it will take over the old habits. And it has to be done over and over and again. Slowly, you'll wean yourself away from this. So practice and detachment, there's the only thing. Then, the scriptures say, study of the scriptures is a good thing. Why? Because it gives you an idea that the reality is something other than what you are actually perceiving right now. What you are perceiving, what you are cognizing, what you are living in this world is actually an unreal, you can see, world. The reality is something separate. That's the Atman, or the consciousness. So you will slowly orient yourself, and then saying, if you don't have that, then go and associate yourself with good people, sadhu sangha, they say. Associate with good people. They will remind you every time about God. Now, if you can't do that, then you practice all those other pranayama, etc. Why pranayama, etc.? Because it will steady the body. That's the only thing. And it will steady the mind. Between the mind and the body, there is the prana, the vital force. So that is the link between these two, the body and the mind. The link is prana. So while you steady this, your breath, your body becomes steady and the mind also becomes steady. So these are some of the means. Devotion to Ishvara, devotion to God, steadies the mind. Service steadies the mind. Devotion, not only kind of to God, but working devotedly, that also steadies the mind. So you have, apart from the practice of yoga, you have the practice of karma, you have the practice of bhakti, that's devotion. All these things are means to stop the mind from bubbling out. The mind is constantly bubbling up. And then, even when you go to sleep, your mind is bubbling up and down in dreams. It has to be quiet. And then when the mind is quietened in very deep sleep, finally there is some rest. But there also, there's something called a karma that takes over. But we don't need to go into that. There also, your deep sleep also is subject to karma. However, this mind, when it is fluctuating, we see this world. The more fluctuating the mind is, the more you can say things become terrible outside. The more calmer the mind is, the more things which are auspicious, which are good, things come to you. You are attracting the whole world with its qualities through the nature of your mind. So if your mind is extremely vicious, you will get vicious people. If your mind is nice and calm and quiet, you will attract calm and quiet people. If your mind is selfish, you will attract all selfish people. If your mind is full of hatred, you will attract those kind of spiteful, hateful people. Yes, this is what we are doing all the time. So simply, oh, the world is terrible. Really? The guy who says, the world is terrible, your mind also is terrible. You're attracting all such things there. So, when the mind is calm and collected, when you're thinking of God, you will see all godly people. You will be oriented towards godly things and divine things. So the nature of the mind is nothing but the nature of the world also for you. And we build an identity on this. So once you can control everything outside and inside by controlling your mind. So controlling the restlessness of the mind will give us health. Yeah, because most of our diseases are due to the restlessness of the mind. Because the mind is restless, the prana, the vital force becomes restless, and that affects most of the nervous diseases, tension, stress, anxiety, depression. These are all mental diseases. Psychosomasis, of course. So, and as humanity is progressing towards different levels of its attainments, these things are also increasing. So many things. The mind that is kind of restless, it's like a demon trying to constantly kill you and smother you. And that's why all the forms of entertainment and intoxication is for you to forget, to distract yourself from these problems that you have. Everything that distracts you, everything that diverts you from what you're supposed to do is. So all forms of intoxication, all forms of distractions, whatever it is nothing but trying to distract you from trying to get some control over your restlessness. Those who grasp it, those who hold it, they will kind of conquer. For them, the whole world is conquered. You conquer your own mind, you conquer the whole world. Not only the whole world, you conquer all the gods and everything. But when your mind is restless, even nature works against you. This whole nature, everything is against me. The whole world is against me. We know why it is. So here you have the mind, such a nice thing, like a small child, is now not listening to you. Who spoiled that child? Well, wrong food, wrong information, everything was wrong. Now the child is not going to listen to it. So it has to be weaned away, it given that proper. So it is like the body is nourished with proper food, the mind also is nourished through proper thoughts. So you start like this, slowly, slowly, feed the mind with good thoughts, good works, good deeds, everything is good, and then everything becomes nice. So the restless mind is like hell inside. And the non-restless mind is like the heaven inside. So much for restlessness of the mind, restlessness. We'll stop here for today. We see you next Thursday about how the Lord gives us a few tips about further control of the mind. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.
Swamiji, if the mind becomes quiet and there is no thought, then what? How can one work if he has no mind?
When the mind is dull, when it's very gross, nothing comes into it. That is also, one must understand, when your mind is fully calm, that is, you have transcended the mind. What work are you talking about? What work can you do? Mental work is more powerful than physical work. So just a thought in such a mind, calm mind, can do more work. It can inspire people. It can do many things. So spiritual work is the highest, because spiritual plane is the most subtle. I don't know what you mean by when the mind is calm and there is no thought, how will you work? Why do you want to work then? You've already worked enough now that the mind is calm. But when I'm talking about the calmness of the mind is different from what you are talking about, the calmness of the mind. The calmness of the mind is the calmness that you find in samadhi, when you get tremendous knowledge. The knowledge is like a kind of an implosion. All your ignorance is completely destroyed, and you see that reality inside, outside. What do you want to do now about it? So it is that what happens when the mind is calm, there is a rise of knowledge. And the more calmer it is, the more knowledge is flashing in the mind. And when the mind is completely killed, as it were, manonasha, then the Atman, which is by nature existence, consciousness, and bliss, shines forth. So strive for that kind of real calmness.
You made a comment saying, if there is no mind, how can one eat or walk? simple things.
If there is no mind, there is nothing. You cannot eat or work. What you mostly do, your eating and working, is mostly done subconsciously. You're not even aware of it. Did you have lunch today? Are you digesting it? You are digesting it? You're not. Most of our work is subconscious. So when the mind has become calm, the other part of your mind, the subconscious part, will take care of this eating and sleeping. So you don't have to worry about that. So you can say, a fraction of the mind is conscious. Most of the other part of the mind is subconscious. So that subconsciousness is running my heart and my lungs and my circulation, my this, my that, my immune system, everything is there. I'm doing it myself, but I'm not doing it in an awareness state. It's happening subconsciously. So you will eat and you will sleep, whatever you want to do, through that subconsciousness. You don't have to worry about that. Because that's the last thing in the mind about what will I eat and how will I sleep when the knowledge dawns. And that knowledge is simple bliss, tremendous bliss. You'll forget. Suppose you go for a kind of some musical, you can say, program or something like that. We have these classical musical programs. They start in late evening and they go on for the whole night. During that time, everybody is so engrossed in it. Nobody even thinks about eating and sleeping. Yeah, amazing. Those things are just pushed away. So in ordinary cases also, you find those instinctive actions being pushed away by something new that's coming, knowledge. So similarly, when the mind has become perfectly still, when knowledge flashes inside, all these other things become irrelevant. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.